Hello, guten Tag and g'day. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my Garden Warfare 2 Cortisol tier list. You may be thinking I'm a little bit too late with the whole cortisol trend, and you're right, but I literally thought of this like 2 days ago, so I couldn't have done it any quicker unless my mind had just helped me out a little bit more. But yeah, I thought of it and I thought it'd be a good idea. I don't think anyone's done this before. And if you don't know what cortisol is, it's basically what your body produces to combat stress. And having high cortisol means that you're stressed. So your body needs a lot of cortisol. If you're low cortisol, then that means you were never stressed to begin with, so you never needed cortisol. So I guess cortisol is really just a good thing, but the internet doesn't think so, apparently. And you know what? I agree. I'm all here for it, you know? In front of me, I have a tier list. I've already pre-made it and you can see it right now. I'm just going to go over it. I'm not going to do it in segments anymore. I'm sick and tired of doing that. It takes a long time to edit as well. I'm just going to have it on screen. So the bottom tier, we've got no cortisol, which might be a bad thing, but it basically means that you have no stress at all. You're not worried about anything. You're just playing the game. You're loving life. You're chilling, you know? And a lot of these characters in this tier are actually some of my favorite characters in the game. I would say 70% of these characters are in my favorite, because Garden Warfare 2 is just a comfort game for me. I just hop on, don't think about it, and I just enjoy the characters that don't require me to think at all, you know? Next, I've got low cortisol. So they're not the chillest characters in the game, but you're still going to have a pretty calming time playing them, you know? You're not going to be that frustrated all the time with the character you're playing. By the way, this isn't going up against the character I'm talking about. This is playing as the character. Middle tier, I don't know if this is a bit of a cop-out, but I've got neutral cortisol. I think that these characters sometimes have their moments where you're pretty annoyed when you're playing them, and then there's sometimes where you're chilling, you know? And by the way, this stress comes from either a character being hard to play, a character being gimmicky, or maybe even just a character just being bad, you know? And low cortisol things would be less recoil, more ammo, faster reload, more chill abilities where you're not jumping around, you don't have to worry about movement as much, you're just sitting on the ground most of the time. Yeah, so things like that. Next tier is high cortisol. These are characters that most of the time you're not really going to be that relaxed with. You're going to be pretty on the edge of your seat, you know? You might rage, you might get a bit angry, you might try hard, and yeah. And lastly, we have the highest tier, which is dangerous levels of cortisol. Now, there isn't many in this tier, just like the bottom one, but these characters are some of the hardest to play or the most frustrating to play characters in the game. Just characters where you've got to be locked in all the time. So yeah, those are the tiers. I'd say in general, looking at this tier list, I mostly have like hit scan characters nearer to the bottom, because you can literally just switch your brain off. You shoot and it hits immediately, whether it's semi-automatic or automatic. And if paired with low amounts of recoil, you're looking at some of the chillest characters to play in the game. We've got Shadow Flower, Hover Goat, Foot Soldier, Barbecue Corn, my personal chillest character to play. When I'm just wanting to chill on Garden Warfare 2, not even think about it, we could just play Barbecue Corn and I could just be the top of the lobby without even using a brain cell, you know? I'm not using that to say that I'm really good at the game, I'm just using that to say you can play any one of these characters and probably get top kills quite easily, bar a few. Maybe I would say Druid Rose is quite hard to get top kills with, and who's that guy? Park Ranger, I forgot the guy's name, he's so irrelevant. Those two I feel are quite hard to get top kills, maybe Centurion as well, but I know a lot of people might not agree with me with Centurion, but hear me out. He's a fire semi-automatic foot soldier, that's all you gotta realise. Like, he's chill as hell. I would say that splash characters and characters that have a bit more area damage are a bit lower, but engineers and pea shooters, who are the main splash characters of the cast of Garden Warfare 2, are up quite high, but that's just mainly because of their play styles. If you think about it, you've got to jump around a lot with pea shooters and engineers. Their abilities aren't really low cortisol friendly. You'll see an Electropede jumping around, getting the top kills, and I can't really think to myself that he's sitting there with his feet kicked up, sipping on a a lemonade with ice in it and a lime on the side, you know? I just don't see that happening. I could see that happening with a foot soldier, 100%. You're just sitting there, you're just holding your trigger button down, and you've got top of the kills. But Electro P, you got to jump around, you got to time your self detonations right. It's just not cortisol friendly, to be honest. I'd also like to say, in general, I have the manual detonation characters quite high. Now, maybe people don't agree with me for this, but I just don't find them fun to play. I find calculating how far you are from the corner of a wall isn't fun. I never have found it to be fun. So that's why I've got them all pretty high cortisol. I'd also like to point out that this list has a kind of legendary character rule. If you look at it, you'll notice that a lot of the base characters are lower than the legendary characters. And even though, you know, getting a legendary meter might be really rewarding, you do realize that it does stress you out sometimes trying to get your meter, whether you're going for it or not, because sometimes you'll be like 4 out of 5 kills and you'll need one more. Whether you're really trying to get it or not, you'll still be annoyed if you don't get that meter. So I feel like I was kind of forced to put some party characters higher than their base forms, where really if you're just chilling playing the character, not thinking about it, it would be the same level as that base character. But I feel like 80% of the time, when you notice you're on that meter, you're gonna just like go, oh, I could die at any moment. I don't want to lose what I've got. And sometimes you'll be sitting around for like 10 seconds wanting to get revived as well, when you could just be back playing the game. It has its moments. Also, with the kind of elemental variants, some are higher and some are lower. In general, fire and toxic characters are a little bit lower than their base counterparts, because you shoot someone, you might kill them with a bit of fire damage, you know, it definitely helps you out a bit more. You can rely on splash if you're a splash character more heavily, and yeah, it just means that you can afford to miss your shots, which will decrease your cortisol levels, I'll tell you that much. And I've got ice characters not on the same level as those variants, because you still actually got to freeze them, and sometimes having to freeze them can be a bit annoying, you know, especially if you can't quite freeze them in time and you're sacrificing damage for a gimmick that might work, unlike fire and toxic where it always works. I know the ice slows them down, but until they're frozen, I don't think it's fully worth it, because they can still get away and use their abilities. Charge characters, I've also got some of the highest on this list, because you've got one chance to give it your best shot, and if you miss, it sucks. And outside of charging, most charge characters you have to spam to be able to fire the quickest. So like Mystic Flower, that's why she's the highest sunflower. And Future Cactus is one of the highest cacti as well. It isn't in order, by the way, it's just in like class order. So even though I've got Electro Citron and Rhodey Z in the same tier, it doesn't mean I think Rhodey Z is at the bottom of the top and Electro Citron is the highest cortisol character in the game. It just means they're on the same tier. If I had to be honest and say what the highest cortisol character in the game was, I think it has to be Lore P. I think there's never a chill moment with Lore P. If you want to do well with Lore P and give it your all, you have to be pretty sweaty, I can't lie. Now I think I'll go over each class as a whole and why they are where they are, really. So Citron's a pretty mid cortisol in general, I'd say. But you do have to get quite close and personal sometimes. The ball can be pretty chill inside of it, I guess. Roses, I would say, are generally quite low cortisol, but I think that some of them are so bad that it actually just frustrates me personally. Like, I can appreciate that playing with Reg Rose can be chill, but some things annoy me, like the homing not working properly, or people just jumping you and there's nothing you can really do except for just play defense. So Corn's one of the lower cortisol characters. They do have a pretty sweaty ability set though, but I think they kind of make up for it with the primary weapon. The primary weapon's so chill to play with. Like, you don't even need to think half the time when you're playing a Corn. Now pea shooters, I would say, are one of the higher cortisol characters in this game, because even though you have splash, your abilities just encourage sweaty gameplay. If you can kind of back off as a pea shooter and just like take a step back, then maybe you can have a low cortisol time playing them. But most people will just pogo pea and things, and they do have some pretty bad characters like Electro P and Law P as well. Chompers, one of the worst, if not the worst. I think we've got the highest concentration of them in the top tiers. I mean, if you can find the fun in playing Chompers, then maybe they're not too high cortisol. But I don't think it outweighs the negatives, man. They're just so infuriating to play sometimes, especially if you chomp someone from behind. You've got to constantly be thinking about how you're sneaky if you want any kind of streak at all. Or maybe you're just one of the Chomper players that burrows into the entire enemy team and doesn't care for some reason. If so, then they might be the people that don't actually care. They are the true low cortisols. And then we go to Sunflowers, which are one of the chillest classes to play with. You've got heals, you've got low recoil, you've got high ammo. You're pretty much just chilling playing Sunflowers. You barely got to think. I mean, I had to put Shadow Flower a tier below Sunflower to just show that there is actually quite a significant difference between these two, because Shadow Flower has no recoil. I don't think some people understand how much better that is than having little recoil compared to Sunflower. Like, just play the two. But since she's so easy to play and good, I think she's the best Sunflower there is. Finally, for the plants, well, not quite, we have the Cacti. They can be quite high cortisol in places. They are more on the higher end. But I think that the normal cactus, Fire Cactus, are one of the most versatile snipers in the game. You can hit your shots pretty easily with them. It's just when someone jumps you in the face, you're screwed, right? I've got Power Cactus a little bit higher than Red Cactus because she does less damage and you have to fire faster as well. So sometimes it can get a bit hectic for the old brain. Same with Ice Cactus. Well, no, not the same at all, actually. She's the exact same as Cactus. She does less damage and you have to rely on freezing someone. And I feel like Ice Cactus is one of the more infuriating ice characters to play, because freezing them means the most to this character, because you're sacrificing so much as a sniper for such a nothing ability, really, because you got to land like 3 or 4 headshots to freeze someone, which I'd rather just kill them in 3 or 4 headshots, which Red Cactus can pretty much do. But the last real plant class is Torchwood. I've got him in high cortisol. I feel like his ability set's pretty high cortisol. You're always fighting, you know, you're always trying to kill someone. And the worst part is you get targeted a lot from the zombie team, because, I don't know, everyone just likes to target of Torchwood. He's got the biggest hitbox, so he's the easiest to hit. And then you end up dying more as a Torchwood than a Rose, I'd say. I'll steam through the zombie classes now. Imps, they're very high cortisol. You've got to jump around, you've got to worry about your movement all the time. They've got high recoil, most of them. But the mechs can be pretty chill inside, because you're literally the most powerful character in the game. Obviously, dying in a mech will give you some high cortisol, I'll say that. It's pretty damn annoying not being able to eject in time, so there is that. I think the Super Brains class is similar to Chompers. They are some of the highest cortisol characters in the game. Toxic Brains, you're terrible outside of that legendary mode, so you've got to make sure that you've always got that legendary mode. You're always punching people. You're going to die a lot before you get that legendary meter, and I think he's one of the higher cortisol characters in the top tier. Same with Party Brains, really. I feel like he's one of the more frustrating party characters to play sometimes. You got to be on your toes a lot, you know. You will fail to get that meter a lot of the time as Party Brains, that's for sure. But in general, I don't have anyone higher than neutral. I think Cosmic Brains is the GOAT of cortisol for the Super Brains, because you're on the ground most of the time, you're charging up a shot, and even though he's a charge character, you're doing way less than every other Super Brains. You're not like jumping around them, making sure that they can't hit you. You're just going up to them, punching them once and hoping it does the job. And then charging up your second shot, which takes like a second, and then hopefully finishing them off. Deadbeards I've kind of got on the same level as Cacti. I thought of 2 things why they should be higher and lower. They should be higher cortisol because of their ability set. They're a bit more aggressive as well. But at the same time, they've got their shotguns so they can protect themselves at close range. So you're going to have less of a problem with people jumping you as you do with Cacti. I've got Squawk up there. I think that the highest cortisol pirate is, for me, Cannon, but for most people would be Squawk. And the lowest is Flame Face. He's got barely any recoil and he's a fire character. So that's just a fun time to me. Next, Foot Soldiers. I think alongside with Sunflowers is probably actually no, I'd say they're lower Cortisol. They are the lowest Cortisol class in the game. I've got 5 in the bottom tier alone, all of which barely have any recoil except for Sky Trooper. But all you need to do with Sky Trooper is get 2 meters closer to someone than you do with Foot Soldier and you've killed them, you know. Engineers you might think are low Cortisol, but I've got them all quite high. I would like to say I think AC Perry might not belong there, but he's just a nothing character that you can't really have that bad of a time playing him. You just hold down the trigger and it just does some damage. A little bit like Toxic Citron. Going into playing AC Perry, you have to expect that you're going to die in most encounters. And as long as you've got that mindset, he can be one of the chillest, most nothing characters in the game. Same goes with Toxic Citron. But yeah, Engineers, I think they've got a sweaty ability set. I don't like the arc that most of them have when they're shooting. And Painter as well. I'll also talk about Rock P in this respect. When you shoot your shots, it like goes with your momentum, so that can really throw you off. That can be really annoying. So having to like shoot your shots thinking about your momentum at the same time, that's high cortisol, man. Next is Scientists, and I don't really know how I feel about Scientists. I think for me personally, I can have a pretty chill time playing them, as long as you go into it knowing that you're not going to get a crazy streak from being a Scientist. However, there are some that are pretty annoying to play at times. I've got Computer Scientist up there, trying to get that meter. I think a Legendary Scientist is just asking for trouble with cortisol levels. Last proper class is All Stars. I think that they're generally one of the lowest cortisol characters. I have none under neutral, and there's quite a lot in neutral. I think that the slower they fire, the higher the cortisol they are, because you're more likely to just miss your shots. But the faster they fire, they can be chill as hell, right? I've got Hockey Star as the chillest because he fires fast and he just does the most damage by far out of all of them. Tennis Star doesn't fire that fast, but you can move freely when shooting with him, and moving freely is your mind moving freely as well. And your mind being able to move freely is cortisol not having to be produced. I think that the most annoying by far is Wrestling Star. He shoots slow and he just sucks, but I still don't think I can put him any higher than neutral, because like I said, if you go into it knowing you're playing a bad character, you can't really have that bad of a time. You'll just be like, you'll die and just be like, oh well, I am playing an F tier character. And the last one to talk about is my GOAT, Hovergoat. And he's my GOAT because he's so chill to play. Like seriously, you use his primary and you use his turret ability and there's no recoil at all. Not to mention you're doing good damage. You're helping out your teammates, which is scientifically proven to lower your cortisol levels. You got a speed boost, which is nice. You got a buff beam. Life's good when you're playing Hovergoat, and do I say it? Screw it. Me personally, Hovergoat is the lowest cortisol character in my opinion. He's just chill, and it also helps the fact that he's his own class. I think that just adds to it, you know? And his just cool demeanor as well. Highest cortisol character, either Law P, Toxic Brains, or Electro P for me. Those are the big 3. Yeah, that's about it really. I know there were some characters I didn't really cover, but if I did, we'd just be here all day, and this video is a bit of a joke video anyway, so I didn't really want to get that deep into it. I feel like I got well over deep enough, to be honest. And let me know your highest and lowest cortisol picks in Garden Warfare 2. And finally, if you enjoyed, subscribe and like. And I'll see you next time.